Welcome to This Is My Architecture. I'm Matt from AWS, and today I'm joined by Greg Sypolt, who's a test automation architect at Gannett USA Today Network. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me today, Matt.
So tell us about Gannett. What do you guys do?
So we are a news media organization, and most people have always heard of USA Today for a national brand, but we also have 109 news markets around the United States also.
Wow, so these are 109 different newspapers and associated news apps all over the US?
Yes, you have newspapers, but also we're focused on the digital media and trying to push that across Android devices and iOS and desktop also.
So that's a lot of applications to support from a developer perspective.
That is correct.
How many users are actually using these applications?
We're around 100+ million unique users every month.
Wow, okay. So today we're going to talk about testing. When you think of 100+ apps and over 100 million users, there's a lot at stake because it's a lot of users, but that's a lot of applications to test on. And I know from past experience that there's a lot of device types out there as well, right?
Yeah, devices are changing almost every day, and screen resolutions are the exact same thing. And it's really critical to where we have 110 news markets that we have to test, but we also need to think about all the different devices and combinations out there.
So how do you know what to test for or what your users are using?
So we typically have been using like New Relic for some analytics and crash analytics to pull in information on what users are using out there today.
Okay, so let's turn to the architecture, what you have on AWS and with some other systems. So your developers are writing code for Android applications. Walk us through this workflow. How are they testing their code on all of those different devices we were just talking about?
So whenever there's a pull request, so what happens is we actually build and run our unit tests, and if those pass, we will upload the APKs for the App Store or also our Android test.
So when you say they're building, when this kicks off, is this Jenkins over here? What's doing?
Yeah, this is Jenkins, and we've built this repeatable and disposable infrastructure to where we can scale up as many Jenkins workers as possible to build those 110 markets.
Great, so you have this sort of parallelized workflow using Jenkins to do the building. You have S3 down here as well. What are you using S3 for?
So S3 is about disaster and recovery in the sense that we're backing up our Jenkins master, so we can literally spin up our master within 15 minutes if we need to. So it can tear it down, spin it back up, and it's just a follow over plan for us.
That's great. A lot of people forget about high availability for their testing infrastructure, so that's nice to see. Okay, so the workers spin up, they do the building, and then they push the APK into Artifactory. So an APK, if I remember right, is an application package for Android. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, so you have a bunch of APKs in Artifactory. What happens next?
What next is about the actual testing. Okay. We do some functional testing around physical devices in the cloud using Device Farm, but we also use the visual QA. And so we schedule those throughout the day. So the functional tests fire off about 4 times a day. And so what it does is it retrieves the APKs from Artifactory, and then it's going to upload it to the Device Farm using the CLI.
Okay, so you just said you had 100+ apps, and then you're deploying 4 times a day. So if you're testing on a bunch of different devices, that's a lot. This is making your life easier, I imagine, to do all this testing.
Yeah, this one is making our life easier because they're managing the infrastructure of all the devices.
Okay.
And devices change every day, so trying to physically go out and buy different devices all the time is really difficult. And so Device Farm is enabling us to have all those different combinations and scale out.
So how does it work with Device Farm? Can you actually access the devices yourself, or is it all automated or a mix?
It's a mix. We can run our automated tests against it, but as a developer, if there is a particular bug or anything, they can actually remote access into that device and try to replicate that issue.
Okay, so you have Device Farm, spinning up these tests on all these different device types. So what happens after that?
So one, it's installing our APKs on the device, and then it starts running the visual test. And along that journey, it's taking screenshots along the way, and it's uploading to Applitools.
Okay, what's Applitools?
So Applitools is an AI engine where it's doing imaging comparison. And so what it does is, the very first time you actually upload an image to Applitools, the next time you run the test, it's doing a diff between the baseline and your next run test. If it identifies, like here, you can see it identified an issue.
Yeah, I see some red there, yeah.
And this could be a good indication if you're running across multiple devices where 99 of the devices pass, but then that new device you just introduced, like the Samsung 8 Plus, it has a larger screen resolution, and we may have broke the visual UI component.
Oh, I see. So you've written this application for Android, but I might have a Pixel, you might have a Samsung device, and how the application renders on our devices may look differently, so it'll flag that effect.
It'll flag that effect, And after it's flagged, what we do is we notify Slack. And the audience here is we're focusing around the designers because they understand the look and feel of the UI components that they're working with closely with the developers, and they would understand that that is a real true visual bug.
Okay, yeah, we use Slack every day. I love it. So it sends a message to Slack. The visual designers say, yes, this is actually a problem. And then what do? They push it back in the queue for development?
Yeah, so it gets back in, it's going to be triage. And
Okay.
so part of that triage is, can we work on that the next sprint, or does it get roadmapped to a future sprint? And it's based on the, how critical and the priority you would set on that actual issue.
Okay, that's interesting, because normally when we think of testing applications, we think of functional testing, but this is, physical device testing and really visual testing, like you said earlier. So it's interesting to see how you've really become agile as an organization for testing on physical devices, mobile devices in this case. It's a cool use case. So yeah, I'm really into this architecture, and I appreciate you sharing it with us today.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me today.
And thanks for watching. This is my architecture.